right, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our privacy engineering seminar. Today we have a speaker who is actually here physically. He's driven all the way from Blacksburg. It's my great honor to introduce Dr. Yaxing Yao, who is an assistant professor at Virginia Tech for about a year at this point. And prior to that, he was a professor at the University of Maryland. And prior to that, he was actually a postdoc here, working in our group here at Carnegie Mellon. He got his PhD from Syracuse University with someone that we know very well also, Professor Yang Wang, who himself was actually a postdoc here about 12 years ago or so. And obviously, Yaxing is doing some amazing research. He's going to share some of his work with us today. Very much looking forward to his presentation. Yaxing, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Norman. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming and thanks for having me here. I'm very glad to share some of our recent research. So we're going to talk about empowering users mostly. And then I'm going to start this talk slightly different than what I usually do. So let's walk through one of the a day in my life, very, very highly abstract day in my life. So, I get up in the morning and then check some social media, mostly Facebook, just to see what's going on. Then I get to my office. Open up Overleaf, start to look at documents, or sometimes I do goof around a little bit on Amazon or YouTube, not too long, but then and then started the day of work. After a long day of work, then I go back home with to see the kids. So that's a very highly abstract day of my life. Then, but this process, a lot of things happening here. And then we're gonna take a look at that. So let's start with Facebook. So one of the essential parts of your Facebook experience is advertisement. Right? So I see things like this a lot, car ads a lot, mostly because I like cars. And then these are because cars kind of, to me, they make sense because I like cars. I have a big family. Sometimes I look for minivans. Blacksburg is a pretty small town. We do a lot of local driving, so hybrid cars make sense. And I do have a pickup truck, the Ram 1500, a pretty old version, not this one, but they seem to know what I like. But sometimes I also see cars that don't make sense. For example, these ones actually showed up in my Facebook page, a Rolls Royce, and then I have no idea why. And then this morning, so this is the airplane is something I did this morning. They showed up in my Facebook page. It's a $5.5 million Boeing 757, and then for some reason they just got posted to me. Things like this don't really make a lot of sense. And then when that happens, then I start to wonder what is happening and what did I do to trick Facebook to show me the ads that I can never afford. And then in this case, I think of Facebook not as a social media site, but it's more like a mysterious black box. If we take a closer look at this, then the issue is not so much about the Rolls Royce or the Boeing, the airplane. It's more about between the users and this black box system. We don't really know what's happening in this system, and there are several reasons for that. First of all, from the system perspective, it's very opaque. We don't really know what happens, and then this kind of opaqueness stops user from being aware of their information, how the information is being used, and how they can make informed decision. Then from a user perspective, then we know a lot. We have been doing a lot of research that users oftentimes have, like a typical user, they have limited privacy knowledge and limited understanding of the consequences. Some users report this fear of exposing personal data, which stop them from even trying to figure out the black box. And finally, for those who may actually understand the system, there's something called privacy paradox. Basically, they say they care about their privacy, but they actually behave in a different way. So when all these things basically, as a result, it's very challenging for users to understand the underlying mechanism that makes a reasonable connection between their data and some of the consequences caused by this black box. For example, in this case, the advertisement. Then you start to show something like this. I don't really know why. Then we start to wonder, how can we as privacy researchers help to make this black box more transparent? And is there a way for users to explore the black box and see the consequences of their privacy safely? So I think from my perspective, we propose something very interesting. Instead of having the user directly experimenting with the opaque system and risking their own data, we introduce persona. So we borrow this idea from the user experience design domains. The UX design process often use persona to understand the gains and pains of a particular user group and help the designers to better design products. So there's a well-used technique called the empathy map. So basically, we brought that idea and try to use it in an interactive way in the context of privacy. So here's how it may work in our vision. So this is a very high-level overview, and this is the kind of explain the process. So the idea is very simple. So if you look at here, the personal data, the personas data, we instead of using people's actual data, we propose to use personas data. And then you put the personal data into the system and just try to see how the ads will change based on the personas data. And then you let user basically explore that and see if they can see the change. They can make the connection between the personas data and the ads, and try to empathize their experiences. We call this an empathy-based approach. So which is basically allow users to build empathy towards different personas to better draw a connection between the personas data and the system outcome, in this case, advertisement. But how do we do that? We create a system called Privacy Sandbox. So the sandbox, we claim that to be a risk-free sandbox environment to explore the connection between the personal data and system outcomes. In this particular case, we're talking about ads. Then it's a large language model based synthetic persona. We developed this pipeline to generate the persona data, and then we also have a pipeline to do personal data replacement, which doesn't make sense at this point, but I'll explain that in a minute. So the first prototype of our sandbox works in the context of advertisement. So let's take a look again, this process. And then let's start from the first step, generating personas right there. How do we do that? All of this actually start with some very random thoughts. GPT-4 is so powerful. Can we ask it to generate a persona for us? Turns out, yes, we can. It actually does a pretty good job. But before we ask GPT-4 to do something, we want to ask, in order to generate a persona, what does the persona look like? What do we ask GPT-4 to generate? So we look at the very typical persona from the UX design process again. So this is, as you can see here, one of the big chunk of this persona goes to the description. And then it has some of the personally identifiable information like your name. It has a lot of the demographic information here. But given our goal, we wanted to look for other types of data that can impact people's advertisement experiences. So we draw from the privacy literature. We also see things like browser types, browsing history, the IP address, and we included something a little bit different, longitudinal personal data, like your calendar events, your social media posts, all those things, those kind of things. So, and now we have all the kind of the dimensions we want to generate. Let's start do that. Then, for those of you who have used ChatGPT or GPT-4 before, you know that you need some kind of prompt to generate some ideas. So we started with the foundation, the persona description, basically describing what the persona should be. And then we start to try different kind of prompts. And then, so if you take a look at this one, it basically says, we ask them to return a realistic profile. We specify the year, kind of the income should be in $, the format of the database, the date of birth, some of the demographic things. Then give it a template. So take a look at the template and then generate something for us. Typically it works well, but sometimes it does give us something that doesn't make sense, or something. Sometimes the format is a little weird, or the facts can be conflicting with each other. So what we do is we augment the output of GPT-4 using few shots learning. So we add this prompt to the original prompt. Then if you look at here, we actually give GPT-4 a example. What do we expect the outcome to look like? And then as soon as we start to try this, the result becomes very stable, very consistent. We got a lot of things that are very interesting personas. So this is one example. I'm not going to read this, but if you can see here, it's basically this persona called Maria is a 39 years old Hispanic female living in somewhere in Texas, and then this is with the birthday, with the income, with all those details here, and then it works very well. We generated a bunch of them. We tested a lot of the personas generations, and the description works very well. Now we have the description. What else do we need for a persona? We need a profile picture, right? So what does this person look like? So we also, because our goal is to generate data rather than using any kind of real data. So we thought of using DALL-E to generate the profile pictures, and then we actually did that, and it works pretty well. So this is the process. So if you remember that description from previous slide, we put that description, and we prompt GPT-4 again to give us a new prompt that can be used to generate the portrait photo. Then we put the new prompt in DALL-E, and magically we have a profile picture for Maria. And then it's realistically fake. It's very realistic, but it's still fake. Right, so now we have a description, we have a profile picture, we build an interface and put that in here. So this is what it looks like. So if you can see here, there's a modify description button here. So it's basically, the idea of a sandbox is for people to play around. If you wanted to generate a persona that you want to tweak something, like let's say we want to tweak the income level or the age or other parameters, it's very difficult to do it that way. In here, it's a whole chunk of text and very difficult to do. So what we did is, if only we can create an interface with all the attributes separated and then let users to modify. Sure, we can do that. Attribute extraction. Then we put the description back to GPT-4, and we augment the output with few shot learning again. We give them a example. This is what we want it to look like. It returns in JSON file, and then now we have all these data. You click on modify description, and it takes you to this particular page, give you all the details, and you can actually modify some things and just see how they changes the profile. And with the same techniques, we generated schedule for this persona. Its longitudinal schedule is pretty full. There's some glitches here, but in general it works pretty well. We generate the device and browser setting based on the persona, the browsing history for a specified period of time. We also generated social media posts. So with this persona, then with this all the generation, and then you actually have a pretty comprehensive persona that has a lot of facts about this persona. And then we examined a lot of them, and we call them realistically fake. They're very real. And then we actually have a study later on. I'll talk about that. Yeah.
Two quick questions.
Yeah.
One is, do you make sure these people do not actually exist? And two, for instance, when you create these Facebook presence, do you also give them friends, and do you verify that the posts are appropriate?
So first question, short answer is we did manual check. So we put that in Google just to see whether we see anything. We didn't see any examples. At least we generated 8 for this research. We did not see anything. The second one, no. So at this point, what we focus on is the post, and then because, for example, Twitter post is publicly available, and then we don't have friends and all those kind of things. That might be something we can do in the future, not in this study. Then, so now we have a very realistically fake persona with a lot of descriptions. Let's go back here. We now have that step. Let's move on here. Let's see if the ads can change based on personas data. And then what we do is we built a Chrome plugin, and then which dumps all the data of the persona into a blank Chrome instance. That will include things like, go to the Chrome Ads Center. You have all these details, and then the browsing history, the IP location, everything, and dumping there. And then basically you have a new Chrome instance with the persona data in it. Then before we move forward, let's see a quick demo of about this whole process. Let's see if this can play.
New persona button and starts by providing guidance to generate a persona that is similar to his own profile. In the input field, he enters financial analyst in Los Angeles, interested in online gaming and sports. This guidance serves as a seed or initial information. Upon receiving the guidance, the privacy persona approach generates a preliminary persona for Bob. This persona is synthesized based on real-world privacy incidents and is named Emily. Bob reviews the preliminary persona to modify any privacy attribute. He can make adjustments or proceed with the generated attributes. Satisfied with the profile, Bob proceeds to generate the detailed attributes of the persona. This includes weekly schedule with location records, the persona's device and browser in use, browsing history, and social media posts. Each part is generated to be consistent with the persona's profile. Once Bob is satisfied with the persona, he can save it for future use or experimentation. Bob can also choose to load other personas he has generated previously. Now, the moment arrives. Bob clicks on the Activate button, and the privacy persona approach uses a Chrome extension to replace his real privacy data with the synthesized data of Carlos, the artificial persona. Bob's privacy data, including his profile in the Google Ad Center, browsing history, real-time location, and IP address, are temporarily replaced. Bob is now Carlos in the online world. Bob can interact with websites and online services as usual, but online service providers will see him as Carlos. He can also switch to other personas' data to see how the system outcomes will change. As he explores, he observes personalized ads customized based on the attributes of the personas. During his interactions,
we'll stop there. So you get the process, and we'll talk about the rest of stuff. So that's the process, and now you are in online world with a different persona. You're someone different. Now we want to run some user studies to find out. First of all, are these personas perceived as realistic by the users, and if the ads are actually influenced by these kind of data replacement, and can user empathize the personas? So give the time limit. I'm going to skip the first one. We have a paper on that you can talk about. You can take a look. But I want to talk about the second one and the second and third one. So we want to measure basically the ads influenced by data replacement. To do that, so we generated 8 personas, then replaced the persona on 5 websites. So ideally, if the data replacement approach is effective, then users should see distinct advertisement when they switch between different personas. So we define this measurement called ad overlap rate. So it's basically the number of duplicated ads between the personas divided by total number of ads in a website. So that's the ads overlap rate. And then for each website, we gathered all the advertisement presented on with each of the 8 personas. We counted the duplicated ads and the total amount of ads, then calculated the rate. So as you can see, if you see the result there, the overlap rates for all websites are less than 50%, which means that more than 50% the ads on the website are unique to each persona, which basically we consider that as the data replacement technique works very well, because some of the ads are actually very universal across different ads. And here's 2 examples. So the first example is based on the persona Michael Johnson. It's a 42-year-old African-American who's live in Atlanta and financial analyst. And then the second one is the ads based by Linda who is a 53-year-old Asian American female living in San Francisco. So if you look at the ads, output by the websites, if you see the shoe ads, they're different. One is on more female, the other one is on the male. And then if you look at that teeny tiny banner right there, so the one on the top is actually associated with the financial institution. Is basically kind of tied to the occupation of Michael Johnson, who's a financial analyst. And then we kind of see that the data replacement actually works. It impact the ads, but can user build a connection between the persona's data and ads content? So we did a quick study with 15 participants to see whether user can empathize the personas. And then we were able to observe two connections. So one we call the direct connections. Basically, if you see the first example, the participant saw an ad from Xfinity, and then they mentioned that the persona does a lot of social media, gaming, YouTube. So there might be a connection between the habits and the advertisement. But in the second one, the participant was trying to build a direct connection between the location and the ads. There's something that we also noticed these kind of indirect connections. So for this one, the participant believed that the tire was related to African American persona. The persona profile did not mention any information related to tires. The participant expressed that I think it's a kind of the tire itself is related to what he has been observed in real life. And a lot of the African Americans like to mess with tires in their cars. We call that indirect connections. So we can see this approach is to some extent it helps the user to understand the connection between the data and the ads content. But this approach by no means is not perfect, is not comprehensive, but this is our first attempt to see how we can leverage these kind of synthetic personal data in the context of privacy and to empower user with more awareness of their privacy situation. And it will continue this work, continue to work on this towards multiple directions. So first of all, it gives us the idea that we might be able to have a plugin that actually hide user identity and real data online. We haven't done anything related to the long-term impact on users' privacy knowledge and behaviors. If they keep exploring this sandbox for long enough, are they able to have new knowledge, or are they able to change their behaviors? And we also wanted to work on some other downstream tasks. For example, aside from advertisement, we want to take a look at news recommendations, algorithmic decision making, including some other things. So that's about the first one. Before I move forward, any questions? Yeah.
Thanks for this piece of presentation. A big fan of your work, obviously. I just actually physically printed out the paper yesterday. I haven't read through it, but I'll do it today. Actually, a quick question about, actually two questions here. So one is, I think the persona-wise is really interesting idea. It's sort of like really brilliant in terms of transferring into a really detailed narrative for the user. I guess just kind of curious, do you see any potential downstream harms actually because of the persona, for example, like biases and biases, right? For example, the example that you show up, people from Atlanta, I know, Black communities sort of like as a huge population there, but in some way it's sort of like fit into the stereotype there, right? So,
yes, thank you for the question. Yes, we do have concerns from ethics standpoint. One of the things that we are not able to overcome at this point is stereotype that the large language models give us. So when we asked the GPT-4 to give us a software engineer, it's always in San Francisco. It's always Asian male, and always have a certain range of salaries. So there's certain stereotypes that we're not able to overcome at this point, and we're hoping we have a full-on discussion of that in the paper. But I'm hoping that something we're working out to. We don't have a good solution, but we're trying to see at least when utilizing this, that's something to keep in mind.
Right. Actually, another question but not related to that point is, so I think it's really interesting to see that people actually could resonate with the persona, right? I guess probably that also comes with your future work as well, but I wonder if you see any sort of indicator of that kind of resonations with the persona could potentially lead to motivation for to perform or do anything in terms of changing their behaviors, or for example using ad block or something like that.
The short answer is I don't know. For the study of this one with 15 participants, it's more of an in-lab study. We're trying to focus on whether they're able to build this connection. So we're actually working on long-term deployment study and to test exactly what you're mentioning to see if there's actually an impact on users' knowledge level and their behaviors. I might be able to answer your question in a couple months. So, yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm kind of curious. This kind of reminds me of like a VPN for humans. So like, do you think like once people realize that personas make a difference, do you think people might actually take on different personas when they're doing day-to-day browsing and try to hide their?
Might be. So that's why, the first point in the future, next work, we inspired by some of the participants, they mentioned that I can actually use this in my life and just to be someone else on the internet. And we feel like that might be an opportunity. We can try. Yeah.
Lots of questions, but simple one. Are you breaking any terms of service when you do this? Are you using a research exemption?
So we should not. Well, no, we did not break any because we actually look at all the terms of services. What we do is so Chrome actually allows us to play around with all the data, and it allows us to import all the synthetic data, essentially like incognito mode, but with a little bit more. Facebook. So we did not mess around with Facebook. So the things we were here is the Facebook posts that generated are essentially fake. It had nothing to do with Facebook. We didn't post things on Facebook. Things are mostly exist in our own system, and then we just it's part of the things that we with that trail, then it may be able to influence the ads that users see. We didn't actually put things in Facebook.
But you're creating Facebook accounts, are you not?
Well, not an account, just the post.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, not accounts.
So you can post without having an account?
So no, the posts themselves we did not post them. It's done something within the persona for user to understand what this persona is about.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not actually account. It doesn't post it. It's basically for the when users are trying to build this connection between the persona and the system outcomes, then they can review the persona to get a more comprehensive understanding of the persona by looking at their locations, social media posts which are fake, and yeah, that. Cool. Okay, so happy to talk more after the talk. Then let's go back to my day. A lot of things will happen. I skipped the Facebook part, and now I moved to Overleaf and Amazon and YouTube. And then one of the things you're gonna see as soon as you log into Overleaf, you can try now, is this cookie banner thing, and then with all the at the bottom, which basically states about your cookie policies and things like that, ask you to make a choice. And then when I go to Amazon, then also you see that button right there, it's green, right? It's very you're very tempted to click on that. So, and then when you go to Amazon, it's like the baby carrot is finally on sale for like $6, but still. Then I was like, I'm very tempted to buy it. And then there's a buy now, press there, and there's a buy now button readily available for me to click. And then I was like looking at YouTube, watching a YouTube video, and then at the end of the YouTube video, there's a bunch of other video recommendation there. And then I was like, maybe I should click on this one. Then the whole morning passed, I did nothing but watching YouTube videos. So all those things you probably have heard of. This is called web dark patterns. Basically, so dark patterns are design elements that deliberately obscure, mislead, or coerce and deceive website visitors into making unintended and possibly harmful choices. So web things, these things are very, very prominent, very prevalent on the internet. And then those are the examples, and they're very harmful because there could be certain consequences caused by dark patterns. So, for example, an invasion of privacy. Once you hit that accept cookie, then all your data just suddenly goes away. Then it can potentially cause financial loss, and then just buy the things without even checking the price. Or sometimes it can be just have some cognitive burden. If I watch YouTube videos for the whole day, then it's a kind of cognitive burden for me. Then, but to combat a dark pattern is very difficult for users. So there, partially because they're hard to deal with, and then there are a couple reasons for that. First of all, existing effort to combat dark patterns focus on providing guidelines and best practices for designers, and which essentially rely on designers' goodwill. Some effort requires public policies to regulate the space, but that can be challenging since dark patterns evolve so quickly. If you look at how they're implemented on the websites, there's a lot of techniques that they're trying to adopt to go past all the policy requirements. Then these approaches essentially do not utilize the end user's autonomy in self-protection. So end users, they do have strong incentives to take actions, and then they often won't do that due to the lack of capacity and support. So the question we want to ask is basically, how do we empower end users to combat dark patterns on the web? And we built a research on the theory called protection motivation theory. Some of you may have heard of that. So this is a theory that helps understand people's cognitive process to motivate self-protection against the threats. So based on theory, there are two factors determining whether people would protect themselves: threat appraisal and coping appraisal. And then the threat appraisal process is to evaluate a threat by considering the vulnerability and the threat severity. And also the coping appraisal process is to evaluate the strategies against the threat by examining users' self-efficacy and the response efficacy. Basically, whether people feel empowered to take protective actions, and whether there are some kind of positive impact when they take the actions. So we use this theory as our theoretical foundation because the two processes here are very much in line with our goal to empower user and motivate them to take actions against dark patterns. And based on the theory, we designed something called DarkPeta. So this is the interface of DarkPeta. So right now it's a Chrome browser extension that detects dark pattern on the web page. So once detected, users can learn more about each dark pattern and select from a list of UI enhancements to mitigate dark patterns. So I won't go too much details into the implementation. If you're interested in that, we can talk about that after the talk. So let's take a closer look at the interface. So we consider, if you look at the interface on the top left corner, it shows you what kind of issues are there on this web page. It's corresponded to the vulnerability, and then we showed you the impact of this kind of vulnerability, which is the threat severity. And then on the right-hand side, once you decide to take some actions, there's a list of actions to basically enhance your self-efficacy. And then we have a mini, some thumbnail to show you the response efficacy. So all of those things together, all pieces consist of the interface of DarkPeta to help user protect themselves from dark patterns. So I think it's best if I just show you the demo, show how it works. So let's take a look. So you go to Amazon. So you look at the very top, you see the DarkPeta is activated, and then you see that particular dark pattern. Then you check out the details, and then you decide to take action, and you see there's a bunch of things you can do. You can focus mode and hide everything and just search for the things you need. Then things you really want. Then you can that's the first thing. And you can have other things. For example, take actions. Decide to call that animated. So what if you buy something that you don't need? Your money flies away, and then I just disappear, and then give you this kind of psychological impact. So now you go to this page, and you look at dark pattern. You activate the DarkPeta. They see this buy now button with a different color, and it helps explain what's going on, explain the impact, and then you decide to take some actions and hide it. It's gone. And then you just have to add to cart and think again, or change it to the same color, and then it's just, don't stand out. That could happen. So, and then friction. So think twice before you buy. Then it's there, and then it stops you from buying stuff immediately. So that's kind of how DarkPeta works. It's open source. It's currently available on GitHub. You can download that and try. And then there are a bunch of other things that we added to this plugin, and then actually works pretty well. Right now, it only works on a couple websites. and we're still working on an automated way to do this. But we think this is a very interesting idea, and then we were curious what do the user think. So we did a user study with 15 participants over 2 weeks of time. We collected a bunch of their log data. So I won't read the details. But then through this process, we try to all these details tell us something about the user's behaviors. But I'm going to focus on 3 things here. So first of all, through dark beta, users are able to develop transferable knowledge, which allow them to think critically and broadly. So if you see things here, then they might be applied to other interfaces. And then that's something that user tell us. This is important because as soon as you start to think about similar issues in other contexts, you're more likely to make informed decisions that benefit you rather than the designer or the business. Then the second thing is we noticed that the capacity to modify existing interfaces boosts the user's perception of empowerment and autonomy. And then, so as this participant mentioned, the confidence increased the sense of autonomy, also increased their willingness to take actions. Then, finally, we also see that such empowerment could eventually lead to behavior change. We see, because this is a longitudinal study, we do that over 2 weeks of time. So in this example, simply showing different dark patterns on Twitter can remind the participant of their goal, which is to reduce time on Twitter, and eventually they succeeded in this particular case. So, we think there's potential on this, and then, we're working on a little bit more, we have more effort to automate this detection of dark patterns on websites, then try to include more, make it universally applicable. So you're more than welcome to try this on the couple websites. I think we have about 10 website support right now. It's hard-coded actually. But as soon as we start to automate this, and hoping to see this being used by more users. Okay, questions? Yeah.
So I wonder if you could potentially generalize this to other things beyond privacy. When you're already dealing with money in a way, right? So people who want to be on a diet, people who don't want to, I think often people have actually these goals, right? But they're failing when it comes to following up on the goals. And so perhaps there's a version of this tool that you could create that could be customized by people,
Possibly,
right? Where they would identify kinds of websites where they actually want to receive some of these nudges, and maybe they could even customize the pictures or the animations, right? So maybe if you're spending money, show the picture of your mother with a frown, and say, okay, my mother gives me money every month, maybe I shouldn't spend her money. I don't know, I'm just making this up, but there could be something like that could actually work well for people.
It could be, yeah. So those kind of things could be, definitely can be done. And one of the things that we feel like, so this study is done before the first one. Then these kind of behavior changes actually give us some confidence then that if we keep doing the privacy sandbox stuff, then we might be able to see some behavior changes over time. We just don't know yet. So, but that's we can explore that. Yeah.
But some other ideas I can discuss with you.
Okay.
We're researching that space.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, and then, yeah.
Very great work. I really like it. But I have a question regarding if you perceived any change during the time. So I don't remember how long you deployed the plugin.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Did you see that people used it less towards the end of the study duration? Because what I think is that if I would use the plugin, I would be very interested in the beginning and just click around, be super interested how it behaves, and towards the end I would be like, yeah, it's okay, like the cookie printer, basically, just clicking accept. And did you see any such behavior, or did participants discuss that?
So in this particular study, the 2 weeks period of time, we actually so if you look at this slide, so let me go back to here a little bit. Here, so I think the data we collected are fairly evenly distributed. However, it is not evenly distributed among participants. Some participants, they're more likely to engage, and they keep engaging for the 2 weeks of period, just like to play around. And some other things that some of those participants did not do that, just like exactly like you said. I think in our study we did observe some participants, they are they're interested in using something like this decrease over time. but we also see participants who are actually consistently using this over at least over the 2 weeks period, 2 weeks of time. So, potentially we might be able to, deploy this longer and just see, actually roll out in the real world and just see how people actually use. Yeah. Not sure that answers the question, but
Yeah, no, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, somewhat related. I think Stanford, a couple years ago, they built a tool, but specifically tackling dark patterns for digital well-being. I think one strategy I use pretty interesting is that they randomly select tackles, or the feature for user.
Yeah.
So I think the one that they want to sort of like addressing is the fatigues as you mentioned, in terms of that when people are using specific feature for a period of time, they just have a feeling of fatigue. So what they do is they randomly pick a feature for user rather than to select, right? So maybe something
could be,
interesting to explore.
could be something. Yeah, we can take a look. Yeah, I was aware of that work. It's very interesting. One of the things that we look into a lot. Great. So I'm gonna go back to my day. A lot of things have what happened, and I'm skipping back at home, skipping all the work and stuff, and now back at home with the kids. And they actually, if you think about what I just talked about, with all the ads and all the cookies and dark pattern stuff, a lot of things have happened. And then what I wanted to do, I really need to talk to my kids about privacy. Just say, well, okay, let's talk about this, and then what you should do. So the following research is something fairly preliminary. It's something what I call is more like a vision. It's on privacy education. So what we want to do here is to look at something that's more tangible, more interactive privacy education modules. So it's different. So the goal is to involve multi-generational family members, not just kids, not just parents. We want to leverage this kind of interaction between different family members and try to create these kind of teachable moments to enhance family-based conversations around privacy and security. So I won't dive too deep into this here. If you're interested, I'm more happy to talk about this. And again, this is the starting point, and then I'm still working on this. Then happy to talk about other opportunities for collaborations, things like that. But I will definitely talk about one of the preliminary research we did. So because here we want to highlight the idea of family-based conversations. So we actually did a study, very preliminary, with 13 parents to understand what kind of conversation do they have? Do they employ during their privacy and security literacy discussion with their children at home? And to what extent children engage in these kind of conversation, and how do we take existing parent-children conversation approaches into account when designing these kind of interfaces and modules for families? So we categorize the 5 types of conversation that parents and children they have. So the first one we call the rule-based conversation. You probably have heard of this. Parents typically tell children the rules and do's and don'ts they should follow regarding digital privacy and security. This is one example. We have this kind of example-based conversation, which is basically parents use tangible examples, for example, phishing emails, to discuss privacy and security concept with their children. We also have a decision-making process conversation. The parents expose their own decision-making thought process behind the privacy actions, and then the rationale that guide them to get their digital privacy actions, and then talk about that with their children. We also see consequence-based conversations. Basically, parents highlight the consequences of privacy actions to children in order to make them be aware of what may happen if enough caution is not being taken. And then last one is the contextual conversation, which is parents discuss privacy and security in context of a specific application rather than something more broadly. So we have categorized these 5 kind of conversations. We're trying to utilize them to guide us through this process, to design interfaces that support the conversation between parents and children. So what's next? So I'm working on this effort called KISS Team. This is a new initiative. We do that at Virginia Tech. So there's a couple of this in the country right now. So that I think we're going to be the 5th one or 6th one that has something like this. So basically, the idea is we're going to have 8 to 12 kids between 7 to 10 years old. They're going to be one cohort, and they're going to come to our campus, to our lab every week to do co-design activities around privacy and security. Then we're going to have a pilot sessions in the next few weeks in March, and we're going to have a summer camp in the planning for the summer. So it's going to be a 1-week effort that children just come all day long. And then we're going to talk about different things related to privacy and security. We're going to work on different kind of techniques that they can design different things that they want to design related to privacy and security. And then the first cohort will come in the fall. So, so again, I'm happy to talk more about this, after the talk. Yeah, welcome to discuss any, if any of you are interested in any kind of a collaboration, happy to talk about that. To summarize, so we talk about the privacy sandbox, which is the work has been accepted at Chi-24. The dark pattern thing is CSW24. Both of these two are, the preprint is available on archive. And then the privacy education, we have a paper at Chi-24 as well, and also another paper at PETS-24. So all these things, the last two pieces we're still working on the camera ready, but once we're done, we'll put that on archive, and then you're more than welcome to take a look. So with that, I'll conclude the talk, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah.
For the privacy education where we are thinking of the teachable moments thing, are you envisioning it like weaving, like using an LLM to add those teachable moments, or like maybe add them through a home agent or some kind of bot, like it speaks up when something like that happens, or how exactly would that work?
Okay, so that's a great question. I think what you mentioned is could be a possibility. So one of the things that I was talking to Norman this morning, also talked to Laurie this morning about the idea. So basically, think about the first idea we have is think about the context of a smart home. You have a smart home, and then you have a like Alexa that connects with all the devices and say, "Hey Alexa, turn the light," and then the light turns on. Right. So that's what you see. What you don't see is all the information flow that goes behind this whole thing, that goes from Alexa to Amazon server to the mysterious third-party server. So what we can do is we can create a physical space that actually equipped with all smart home devices. We connect all the devices with LED light strips. So when you say, "Hey Alexa, turn on the light," then the lights turns on. At the same time, there would be possibly a green signal that goes from Alexa to the light. And then will be an orange signal goes from Alexa to Amazon server. There will be a red signal goes from Alexa to probably a mysterious gray cloud mounted on the ceiling. And then, so that will be an immersive experience when you go in there, and then when you start to interact with the smart homes. And then once you do that, then you start to think about, hey, I just asked Alexa to turn on the light. What happened to all these things? And then those are the moments that you start to be curious what's going on. And then we call that the teachable moments. Basically, something's happening in the context, and then you're able to give them some kind of other materials or apps or whatever things that you can do in that moment to help them to learn more about this, what's going on here. Hopefully that in the next time when they're in Facebook, for example, do Facebook has these kind of information flow behind the scene? Does Twitter have this? Those kind of transferable knowledge. Something that we're still working on. Is still at very early stage of the ideation. We're working on the first prototype or trying to figure out, to bring in kids and to play with this, and we'll see how it goes. But the idea is that that's something that I'm really passionate about. I'm going to work on that probably over the next few years and to see what we can get. Yeah.
Any more questions? Yes,
I have a bit more abstract question.
Yeah.
So across the board, I really like your work in terms of how we could potentially empower user, or even for kids who will end up being an end user at some point. I guess I'm kind of curious, how do you see, or how you envision your impact for the work down the road, right? For example, for those two really cool systems, the privacy sandbox and the dark PETA, do you envision as a third-party type of tool, or you sort of envisioning could be incorporated into the actual end user serving services? Yeah, I just kind of curious what's your vision in terms of your research will be put into place.
Yeah, thank you. I guess realistically, It will probably be easier if this is a third-party tool, and then like the ghost tree and all this, the like ad blocker, this kind of thing. It's probably easier for us to develop something than just deploy and see what the users feel like. I'm very interested in these kind of field deployment work, just to have something that's package them and just send it to the wild and see how users react. I guess that's kind of the at least from my perspective, that's going to be the destination of most of the project I'm working on right now. Whether they're able to take off, I don't know at this point, but we'll try. Yeah.
Oh, there's a question on Zoom. Let me. So if you're on Zoom, you can unmute yourself and just speak. Thank you. Ooh, there are a bunch of questions. Okay. So I'll start with the top. Are you considering a plugin where presumably some can simply view data stored on them and hide or change sensitive data or incorrect details? That's an ambitious one.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. It's I think it's I'm not sure that's doable. It might be doable, but it's going to be very challenging if you're actually tracing down your actual data. It might be able to do that, from the moment you install the plugin, but it was already out there, and I currently don't have a good way to just extract those information from Google server. That's going to be difficult.
So from the same person, they're hoping you might be able to reveal something about the inner workings of dark PIDA, and people can see obviously a lot of potential to dark PIDA and potential improvements, but they're curious to know a bit more how it works.
Okay. Please read the paper. So we have all the technical details, all those things there. Probably it's going to take some time to explain that. I'm not sure whether we have that time, but yeah.
So they're inquiring, for instance, about the ability to provide personalized recommendations based on each individual's actions and activities.
Oh, I see.
And so on.
For now, we don't have that. It could be something we can do, but it raised another question: should we do that in something that we're actually helping people to protect their privacy and give them a little more autonomy, and are we taking that away from the user? So that's another question that we need to think about. That, but it's doable, but it requires a little bit more work. Yeah.
So someone is asking about whether you've explored different UI designs for dark PIDA to maximize efficacy.
So the designs, we document this process in the paper. So it's actually a co-design process. So something that we came out, we have a co-design workshop with the users, and then we just basically have a different variations, and then we ask them which one, and we ask them to design, and we extract all the design elements, and then we summarize something, and based on the theory, we actually come up with something like this one. So this is actually it's not something that we design, something from the users with our input.
Someone is asking about the privacy education part that you discussed at the end, and whether you are simulating conversations through LLMs or weaving LLM responses within the family conversation.
So for now, no. For now, that's not the goal. For now, we're trying to, the teachable moments, we want that to based on the actual family interaction. We want that to be, so for example, one of the idea we have is to have these kind of modules in the context of informal learning settings, like museums or science centers. That's based on one of our, based on my experience as a parent. Sometimes when I go to other people's place and see, the children, they have some, to keep them quiet, they give them a smartphone and they just play by themselves. And even though they're home, you're sitting in the same space, you're not interacting as much. Versus in a museum or science centers, people are more committed. We actually have in the Kai paper we have people mention that the time at museums, science centers, these kind of places, they consider that as a quality family time. You are actually dedicating to interacting with other family members, and then we value that a lot in this process. So we don't really, at this point, we have no plan to use this kind of synthetic data. We want to create this real moments for teaching about privacy and security stuff.
So there's one more question here in the chat, and it's asking about whether you are thinking about potentially expanding those modules in a museum for eventual deployment in school curriculum.
Yes, we are. We are collaborating with the Western Virginia Science Museum. We're collaborating with it's called Chicago Industrial Museum or something like that. So we're collaborating with them. So it's things that we're working on right now will eventually be deployed. We already reserved a space in the Western Virginia Science Museum. So things that we're developing will eventually at least test it in those actual museum space and see how the user actually react to this. So yes, we do have plan to expand this to real settings. We do plan to build actual modules that can be moved around different places. So yeah.
So super exciting research. Thank you for a great talk, Yaxing. Thank you for actually coming here in person. Really appreciate this. Big round of applause again.